This meeting of the Pyrenees Shire Council. Councillors will today deliberate and decide on a range of matters relevant to the work of Council in its communities for the welfare of the people of the Pyrenees Shire. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this ordinary council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or make a submission will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of that live stream and recording. The chair or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed appropriate. That may include where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. The live stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting and will recommence for the conclusion of the meeting. Public is able to view this live stream via our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the live stream, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum can be maintained, and, where possible, a recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Where a quorum cannot be maintained, the meeting will be adjourned until the issue is resolved or the meeting postponed to another time and date in accordance with Council's governance rules. We acknowledge the people past and present of the Wadawurrung, Jar Jar Wurrung, Eastern Ma and Watchabolik tribes, whose land forms the Pyrenees Shire. We pay our respect to the customs, traditions and stewardship of the land by the elders and people of these tribes on whose land we meet today. Any apologies, councillors? No. Any notice of disclosure of interest by councillors or officers? We have a recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 20th of February 2024, as previously circulated to councillors, be confirmed. Move Councillor Ferrari, seconded Councillor Easton. All in favour? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? No. Public participation. Members of the community are encouraged to participate in public ordinary council meetings by asking questions or presenting a submission. This can be done by attending in person or by submitting in writing prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting, online, through Council's website, or by mail or hand delivered. If a question or submission is submitted in writing, this will be read by the chair during public participation, stating the person's name and township. Question time will be held first, followed by public submissions. A person may ask a maximum of 2 questions at any one meeting, and the chair will allocate a maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address council or ask questions. Chair, councillor or council officer to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for answering at a later date. There will be no discussion or debate with public attendees. However, councillors may ask questions of the attendee for clarification. Any questions from the floor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and executives. Good evening. My comment tonight is more, not so much a question, but obviously the community and all of us have gone through a fairly traumatic bushfire problem in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and the damages I've seen in the last 2 weeks have been horrendous. And right through that, the fire brigade, all these authorities were fantastic, SES, all that. We have a very popular Channel 7 executive over there on TV every day. He was great, our mayor. But the Victoria Police were outstanding. Some of the things I saw them do was amazing, and I just wanted to bring that up today. But there was one silent, quiet achiever who went about his duty and did things just in such a great way for the community, and a lot of integrity, just quietly did his job. So I wanted to personally thank Jim Nolan for his efforts. I think it's been fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We have one written question, and it's from Dean Hurlston from the Council Watch Incorporated. Question is, what amount of waste enforcement costs in the current financial year 2023-24 has the council included in its waste levies charged to residents, if any? Thank you, Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Helston, for your question. The answer to this first question is that council hasn't had any money allocated in its cost to waste enforcement, so there's a zero amount in answer to the question. Council does take enforcement action relating to waste, but it is not significant enough to place as an income line.
Thank you. And a follow-up question, what amount of revenue has council included in the current financial year 23-24 from waste enforcement actions?
Again, the answer to this question is zero. Council does take enforcement action relating to waste, but it's not significant enough to place as an income line.
Thank you. I will allow the third question, which already possibly been answered. Has that revenue been offset in the waste levy or applied to council's general revenue stream?
Any income generated from waste enforcement would be accounted in council's general revenue stream.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. We move on to items for noting. Item 9.11. Be prepared to move that as having been noted. Councillor Clark, thank you. Councillor Ferrari, second. Any discussion, councillors? All those in favour? Carried. Oh, sorry, Councillor Clark.
Just to thank Mr. Gowans for the report to update the community on what's happening at Leaston. Do we have any sense, Mr. Gowans, of kind of how long it might take? My sense is these things are normally kind of about 6 months. Would that be reasonable by the time we work through all the back and forwards?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. There was a timeline associated with each of the submitters, and there are some issues in some of the consultations, about 4 different periods of consultation associated with a full flood study, and we do cross over into the councillor caretaker period. So you're right, a typical study would take a minimum of about 6 months, but I think what we're looking at is probably a completion in the first quarter of the calendar year 2025.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Put that motion. Those in favour? It's carried. Item 9.2.1, custom action requests. Somebody prepared to move? Move, Councillor Clark. Seconder, Councillor Eason. Any comments, councillors, to put the motion? Those in favour? It's carried. Moving along to 9.2.2. Moved, Councillor Eason, seconded Councillor Clark. Any comments, councillors? No. Put that, all those in favour? Carried. 9.3, 10.1, councillor activity reports. Happy to move. Thank you, Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Ferrari. And all those in favour? Carried. 11.1, Assembly of Councillors, February. Move, Councillor Keogh. And seconded Councillor Eason. All those in favour? Carried. Now we're into the real stuff. Items for decision. Item 12.1, Corporate and Community Services. Ms Brown? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council adoption of a new unique name for Anderson Lane Road in Percydale, which is duplicated with a similar road name within a 10-kilometre radius, changing the name to Knott Lane. The road shown on the map within the report is named Anderson Lane Road in Percydale and connects the eastern end of Percydale Road with Vinoka Road. The road name is duplicated very closely with Anderson's Lane in Amphitheatre, which is less than 10 kilometres to the west. With two similarly named roads, which has public safety and accessibility considerations within a short distance, an assessment of which road should be renamed was undertaken. Anderson Lane Road, Percydale, is rural farmland serving no residential properties, and the other road actually serves 3 properties, 2 of which are residential, which is why this particular one was chosen for renaming. Potential alternate names were sourced from a mid-century parish plan of the area, and just one name was not already duplicated, that of Knott, which with a K, which has therefore been chosen as the alternate name. And the recommendation is that council adopts Knott Lane as the road name for the road currently named Anderson Road Lane, Percydale, which connects Percydale Road and Vinoka Road. Thank you.
Have a recommendation. Moved Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Pio. No discussion, councillors. Councillor Beeson.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
further past Percydale Road, does Knott's Lane go all the way to the highway? Or is that another name?
I'm looking at the map, it looks like it does, but I may have to take that question on notice and come back to you. Thank you.
Motion, those in favour? Is carried. 12.1.2 Gender Equality Action Plan Progress Report. Thank you, Ms Brownwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides a progress update to the Council and the Gender Equality Commission on the implementation of the Gender Equality Action Plan, which is called the GEAP. Pyrenees Shire Council is a defined entity under the Gender Equality Act, and as such has obligations under the Act, including to develop and implement a Gender Equality Action Plan and publicly report on their progress in relation to workplace gender equality and complete gender impact assessments. The Gender Equality Action Plan was submitted to the Commissioner for Gender Equality on the 31st of March 2022, and our first Diversity and Inclusion Progress Report, which we have to do every 2 years, was submitted to the Commission on the 13th of February this year. In the reporting period, 3 gender impact assessments were completed. Details or summaries of them in the report. And in addition to reporting on gender impact assessments completed, the report provided progress updates against 3 key areas, which included strategies and measures progress, which details updates against 15 strategies included within the Gender Equality Action Plan, and a copy of, resourcing the Gender Equality Action Plan. Of course, with limited budget availability, a lot of the resourcing is done by officers within normal budget parameters, but there is a little bit of budget that's allocated to implement some of the strategies. And a reporting of progress or improvement against a set of 7 specific indicators, which again are summarised in the body of the report. But of those 7 indicators, it was reported that positive change had been achieved in 5, which is pretty good for the first 2 years of the plan. And it's the officer's recommendation that council notes the information contained within the report submitted in February 2024 to the Gender Equality Commission and continues to support the implementation of the plan through appropriate budget allocations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bramwell. We have a recommendation, councillors. Move councillor Easton, second councillor Clark. Any discussion, councillors? No? To a recommendation, all in favour? That's carried. 12.1.3, report from the Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. Thank you, Ms Bramwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides Council with the first report of 2024 from the Chair of Council's Audit and Risk Committee on the performance and operations of that committee, covering the latter part of 2023, and the report was provided separately to councillors. A little bit of a summary is provided in the body of the report on what was included in the Chair's report. And it's recommended that Council notes the information provided in the report and formally acknowledges and thanks Wendy Honeyman for her contribution during the 9-year tenure as a member of its Advisory Audit and Risk Committee, including a period over the last 3 years as Committee Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Brown. We have a recommendation. Move councillor Ferrari, second councillor Keogh. Any comments, councillor? Councillor Clark.
I haven't been on the audit committee for some time, but I think, again, just to add my voice, and I'm sure the other councillors as well, to Ms Honeyman's contribution has been terrific. To have someone of her skills on our audit committee has been really very valuable.
Thank you for that. And I was certainly going to make the same remarks. She's given us wonderful service over that 9-year period. We have a recommendation. All those in favour? Is carried. 12.1.4 project update for March 2024. Thank you, Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. The purpose of this report is to provide a snapshot update on some of the projects that are underway currently. And I won't read out all of these projects, but I might just make reference to a couple of significant ones for the benefit of the community and anyone that might be online. I guess the first one is the Avoca Drainage Maintenance Project. Now, this is a significant project in Avoca at the moment. The value of the project is in the order of $900,000. It is in the main funded under the Local Road and Community Infrastructure Fund, which is a Commonwealth Fund. And there's been significant work happening there at the moment. The community would have noticed a significant amount of curb and channel replacement in the streets in Avoca, as well as some open channel work that's happened in the median on the north side of the railway line there. And of course, anyone that lives in that area would appreciate that those storm and flood events in October 2022 would have caused some problems and some inundation of houses there. So part of the purpose of this project is to assist in alleviating that flood impact for future events. There's still a lot of work to be done in terms of underground culverts to be installed in various locations there, but that work is well underway, Mr Ware, and just want to highlight the excellent work by the staff and the contractors that are involved in that project at the moment. We're hoping that that makes a significant difference to that part of the community. I'm happy to maybe leave the rest of them as they are, Mr Mayor. And there is a recommendation that Council notes this report continues to provide updates and information to the community about the status of projects across the Shire through various communication methods.
Thank you, Mr Nolan. I, for one, will be keen to see some rain to dry out our drainage. After 7 weeks without a drop of rain, it'd be very nice to see the drains running on a very near future occasion. We have a recommendation, councillors. Somebody move Councillor Easton. Seconder, Councillor Keogh. Thank you. Any comments, councillors? Councillor Easton.
Yes, the work in Avoca and across the Shire, it's wonderful to see. We often ask the question of what's going on locally. This is something that Avoca has been trying to get operational for quite some time. And finally being able to get the project underway is wonderful, as well as the Homebush Road pedestrian crossing project being completed with VicTrack. A couple of very well planned, well exercised projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment, councillors? No? Put the motion, those in favour? Those carried. 12.2.1. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Brandon Rocky Road fire update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is really to provide an update to both councillors and to put on the public record some of the activities that have occurred in relation to the Bonedean Rocky Road fire that's impacted on communities across the Shire over recent weeks. I won't read through the report, Mr. Mayor, but it does trace some of the history of what actually happened in those weeks, particularly on Thursday, the 22nd of February, where the fire commenced, and then subsequently the following week on Wednesday, the 28th of February, where there was a peak event that occurred. And part of the purpose of this report is just to recognise and acknowledge some of the impact on communities, on individuals, and on the economy. And the details of that are outlined in this report. Mr. Mayor, this is a progress report, and at the time preparing this report, not all the impacts were fully understood, and there's a significant amount of work being undertaken and in progress in respect of the impact assessment. And once those, both the rapid impact assessment and secondary impact assessments are completed, will the full impact be really understood. Mr. Mayor, the February Victorian storms and bushfires were declared a natural disaster, and this was necessary to enable individuals and businesses to access the financial support through emergency relief payments through the Victorian Department of Families, Fairness and Housing. And I'm pleased to say that has flowed through to those individuals and businesses that have been affected. And certainly encourage anyone else that has not received those payments to get in contact with council. There's also been a reference number being assigned to this disaster, which is important from a council financial perspective to enable disaster recovery funding arrangements to be implemented. And these are Commonwealth funding arrangements that enable council costs to be offset by the funding. At the time of preparing this report, Mr. Mayor, the event is still under the control of the ICC, and as of today, I have received a draft transition to recovery report from the ICC, which is a necessary part of the process in these major national disasters, where they transition from the control agency through to the recovery agencies who have responsibility ongoing. I guess in the outset, it's important to acknowledge the fact that no lives were lost in this event, despite the significant impact on agriculture, businesses and individuals, Mr. Mayor. And I guess the emphasis around safety and protecting lives is a strategy that the state and the emergency response agencies have when they tackle these emergencies, and that is a credit to the efforts from the various emergency response agencies, whether they be through the ICC or the on-ground volunteers. And I'd just like to recognise the achievements and the efforts made by many in that regard. As I mentioned, rapid impact assessments and secondary impact assessments will identify the full impact. Contained within this report, there's some commentary about the impacts as they exist at the moment or at the time of preparing this report, and that may change. But it's pretty evident from that information that the impact has been significant. Over recent weeks, there have been significant advancements to commence the process of bringing communities and back together and assisting individuals to recover from this event. Perhaps important to recognise that Blaze Aid has now established a camp at Buanga and is assisting farmers and those impacted with loss of fencing to get fences back in place. From a tourism and economic perspective, there's been a significant broader impact on this event as a result of the loss of nature-based tourism, which Pyrenees was very proud to have, and we expect in time that will re-emerge and we continue to be a strong asset for Pyrenees. But at the moment, there's been significant damage there, and understanding that broader economic impact will be a focus over the coming weeks and months. Mr. Mayor, there's a range of concerns and immediate issues that council and council staff have been and are continuing to work with communities and the relevant agencies to address. I'm not sure how many dot points there are in this report, but there is numerous dot points there which outlines the extent of the work that's still to be achieved. Obviously, from the organisation, incredible effort by a number of staff within our organisation to step up, to respond, to do what's needed. And I do appreciate Mr. Davies' sort of comments at the start of the meeting, but believe me, it's very much team effort from Pyrenees, and I'm very much indebted to the dedication and the commitment and the willingness of people to step up when it was needed. And of course, many of our staff, Mr. Mayor, were directly impacted by the events of the fire, and so there was some concerning moments during the last couple of weeks. Ongoing, Mr. Mayor, it is intended that a recovery plan that captures a lot of this activity will be prepared and brought forward to council. We're obviously already on the job of commencing that recovery work. And as I say, that transition to recovery is still in process, but many of those activities are underway. And some of those activities include, as I mentioned, some work and coordination around fencing, assisting farmers in respect of stock and hay, and working with agencies to support that effort, access to water, supporting individuals to access their emergency payments and their immediate support. Of course, the relief centres that were established were a major part of this event in providing that early relief. And as people are now coming to terms with some of the impacts personally, there's an ongoing case management of individuals' needs to be available to actually assist them through this process. And then, importantly, from a council perspective, the impacts on our roads and the access to property is a consideration. And right at the moment, there's still significant risks out in the fireground when it comes to dangerous trees. And I do just alert the community to the fact that this is an ongoing process. There is some significant numbers of trees that we are in the process of having assessed, and the safety of our residents ongoing is a matter of concern, and obviously that is being given priority at the moment as well. From a financial perspective, Mr. Mayor, it's important to recognise the fact that there is a financial cost to the state and to the community, and council's efforts and advocacy is focused on ensuring that we're efficient and effective in what we do. And secondly, that the costs are not a legacy liability to our community, and seek that both the Commonwealth and the state will fund the costs associated with this emergency. It is a concern because we're still awaiting some commitment in respect of gap funding at the moment, and we are, spending money on recovery and in response to the emergency in anticipation that support from the state will be forthcoming. Mr. Mayor, that's probably enough from me. I'll perhaps just make you aware of the recommendations in the report, and there are 5 of them. The first is that council continues to use council resources to respond to the needs of our communities through this phase of the emergency to the extent that it's possible in collaboration with other agencies. That council acknowledges that some ordinary council services have and will continue to be affected due to staff needing to respond to emergency activities. That council continues to advocate to government for appropriate level of funding to ensure council and the community is not unreasonably impacted. That council prepares a recovery plan which sets out the resourcing necessary to deliver necessary activities to ensure appropriate level of recovery, and that the plan be reported to a future meeting of council. And that council acknowledges the efforts of all people and agencies involved in the response to the Bayandine fire, and formally thanks all involved.
Thank you, Mr. Gowan. Nolan, we have a recommendation, councillors. Moved Councillor Ferrari, seconded Councillor Kerr. Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I was directly impacted by the fires, and the ferocity and the speed of the fires was frightening. So I'm pleasantly surprised that there weren't more houses and infrastructure and stuff lost. So it was just absolutely frightening. I'm glad there was no loss of life, and my genuine thoughts go out to those who have lost houses, infrastructure, livestock and land, and experienced that trauma. Even if they haven't lost stuff, the ability, knowing that fire is there, can be very traumatic for people, especially if they haven't experienced that sort of thing before, or if they haven't seen what the devastation a fire can cause. So my thoughts go out to those people. Out of that adversity sometimes brings great things, and what it has showed the community's brought out the best in the community, and they certainly have banded together locally, and it was very pleasing and reassuring to see that. So and they do that without prompting most of the time. They just do it off their own back and do what they can as a volunteer, or however way they can help out through donations and everything. So that's really appreciated, and I urge people to continue to do that. It's just important to look after each other, and don't be afraid to speak up if you see something or someone is not right. So don't be afraid. If you think they're not right, speak to someone, speak to them, get them help if you need to. And to that end, don't be afraid individually yourself to reach out if you need help or assistance or advice if needed. We can all get to the end of our tether, and sometimes things get a bit much. So please don't feel afraid to reach out if you think you need help. And finally, it's just my hope, for the sake of our small rural community, that the state and federal governments respectively have a genuine sense of urgency in providing support to the community, and including to the Pyrenees Council. And I thank all those people that reached out to me during that time. Very much appreciated. Apologies if I didn't get back to everyone, but I do appreciate it, and it's just fantastic to know those people are thinking of you and got your back. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kerr.
Just to second everything that Councillor Ferrari has said, I think it's and most poignantly the incredible efforts, volunteer and of agencies and of every single residence that we didn't lose a person. And my heart again does go out to those that have experienced either loss through property and that experience of trauma. And just to second again, no matter what level of impact that was, we do reach out if you need that support, and thank you to those people who've done so much in smaller ways and bigger ways, but just so many instances that we could talk about. Thank you again, and gosh, you can't be prouder of a community that can stick together like that, so it's wonderful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Councillor Pierre. Any further comments, Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add a couple of comments from my perspective too. Firstly, you just need to kind of just understand the impact of this to the Shire. It was 6% of the Pyrenees Shire that was burnt, 220 square kilometres, 6% of our whole area. So it's a really significant bit. And a couple of people have talked about the fire task. There's no doubt about it. The emergency services were just amazing. And it's the first time I've seen a fire of that extent, like to go for nearly 9 days and keep us absolutely on our toes for that period. The response was just amazing in that sense of things. I think we're pretty mindful of the effect on our businesses, what it will mean to lose Buanga State Park and Mount Cole Forest generally for a period of time, the effect on agriculture, and as Mr. Nolan's mentioned, we've got support in terms of food and fencing and those type of things. Places like Cove Hill Creek, which are very iconic for us, and I've been able to speak to both the owners in the last week, which has been just fantastic, and just how keen they are to get themselves back up and operating and going again, and saying, sorry, we can't take anyone until next term. Got a wedding, I think, this week, but, really not taking any kids till next term. But, that's only 6 weeks, and they reckon they'll be back up and going. And, they're very lucky, good preparation. They've saved their main infrastructure. They've got a lot of minor infrastructure to deal with. As I said, the glamping tents aren't bad, but once you go inside them and smell them, you go, we just don't think these are going to work in the future. So there might be some very cheap tents on the market for someone if they want them soon. And I think the other one is just the pine plantation. It's a bit of a sleeper in the Shire, but you forget the fact that there's about 1,000 hectares of that burnt, and that'll have to come out within the next 12 months, perhaps even less. And Mr. Gowans, I think, quoted a figure to us all earlier today of about 150 B doubles of timber a week. But I'm not sure how many weeks, but for a number of weeks to get that timber out and get it processed and get some value out of that in that sense of things. Moving forward, I just say to the community, have a little bit of patience with council. Everything that we do, someone makes rules for us about how we can do stuff. We don't necessarily make them ourselves, but we do have rules around everything that we have to do. So just bear with us because we have to work through that in that sense. But don't forget, we are your first point of contact. We are not necessarily the solution to your problems, but we are absolutely here as the conduit for anything that you need in terms of passing that message on. So, please reach out to us as councillors, to the organisation at any stage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we've had a briefing today with regards to the fire and with regards to the recovery process. One of the biggest obstacles that was brought to my attention was the fact that we're still waiting on money from state and federal governments for the floods. Now, the floods were quite some time ago. We've got many millions of dollars sitting out there of ratepayers' money that we're waiting for reimbursements from governments. We've now had another emergency in the fire. We need state and federal governments to get together and work together to support local councils. Local councils can't do it on their own. We need their support, we need their funds, and we need it quickly. Waiting for extended periods of time to get small amounts of money is hurting our ability to help our ratepayers. So please support your local governments through getting state and federal governments in any way you may be able to contact them.
Thank you, Councillor Reeson. It would be my duty to pay my respects on behalf of council to all the service authorities that worked at the fire. We were unlucky to have a fire, but in another sense, I guess we were lucky that there were no other major fires running in the country at this particular time. So we had responders from New South Wales, we had aircraft from Sydney and helicopters flying all around. We were extremely lucky that we had so many services assisting at the fire. I'd also like to thank the local governments that pitched in and helped us, our immediate neighbours, Central Goldfields, with their relief centre in Maryborough and the rural city of Ararat, with their relief centre, and Ballarat Council were just absolutely marvellous. Their response was immediate. We did set up a centre in Beaufort, but it didn't last very long, did it, Mr CEO? Because our town of Beaufort was under immediate threat. So our thanks go out to our neighbouring councils, and also the councillors that phoned me from as far away as East Gippsland. I was receiving calls from people who are genuinely concerned. We are a brotherhood when it comes to local government, and it's nice to know that people respect that fact and pass on their regards. And last but not least, I want to thank every one of our own personal staff for the mammoth efforts that they put in, whether they were at the fire front, whether they were coordinating at relief centres, trying to organise food, and also being in at the ICC Centre. A massive job on all concerned. So my personal thanks, and I'm sure I speak for the other councillors. I'll put the motion, councillors. Those in favour? As carried. Thank you. 12.2.2, Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Bid. Mr. Nolan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and councillors would be familiar with this project. The purpose is to seek council support for financial contribution to the Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Project in the 24-5 and 25-6 budgets. This project involves 13 local governments across Victoria, and two of the main contributors financially to this project, the City of Ballarat and the Greater City of Bendigo, are the lead councils, and whilst other councils contribute in part and there's other funding available, there is a request from the project group that further funding would be required to support the next stage of preparation for this World Heritage bid. The objective is to seek UNESCO World Heritage listing for the Central Victorian Goldfields region to generate transformative impact on tourism, jobs, public and private investment. So what sought, councillors, in the first instance is $8,000 over 2 financial years. First instalment would be a direct contribution towards an Enabling Tourism Fund application to lever with some of the existing Victorian government funding on key elements of the master plan. And then the second instalment will be dedicated towards funding applications in 25-6 with plan to lever further state government funding. So, Mr Mayor, the impact of this is a total contribution of $8,000 sought in 2 instalments over the next 2 financial years.
The recommendation, councillors. Somebody prepared to move? Move Councillor Easton, second Councillor Ferrari. You wish to speak on either occasion? No? Any other councillors wish to comment? Put the recommendation. Those in favour? Is carried. We'll start with item 13. Councillor Easton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had cuppa and chat in Beaufort. the Rail Freight Alliance annual general meeting, an ordinary meeting in Melbourne, where we were able to listen to the CEO of Infrastructure Victoria. Very interesting how organisations like Infrastructure Victoria have plans set out for extended periods of time, and they refresh them every 5 years. And his comment was that most of what they are recommending to government is started or in the pipeline from their last 5 years, not all of it, but most of it, when they're doing their next 5 years. So their ability to be heard and listened to by government is very good. It's nice to know that these entities that have been created by government are actually being listened to, because they're a very valuable source of infrastructure for Victoria-wide. And unfortunately, we've had a few fire meetings around the Shire. Meeting in Beaufort on Sunday was very well attended, and I again want to congratulate the ICC for the exceptional work that they did to try and keep us all informed as best as possible. Some of the information was not understood, but they're trying to put it out there for everybody, and I'm sure there were some people in the hall that understood some of the technical details. Then the meeting in Avoca was much the same sort of thing, just trying to keep the community advised as to what's going on, how it's occurring, and where it's likely to go. And you can't ask for any more than that in an emergency. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor Eaton. Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'd just like to reiterate the huge thank you to all the emergency services personnel and volunteers who, you know, worked so tirelessly to protect the members of our community, and thank you to all the support services. And again, we've spoken about our officers, and also earlier in the meeting, Jim Nolan, who coordinated all that too, and was there that whole time. We really are truly thankful for that. And other organisations like the Red Cross, Blaze Aid, all those other bodies who were there to help and are still continuing to do so much. All the other people still working tirelessly to keep cleaning up the area up there and making it safe. There's such a huge effort still continuing long after the fire, so we give thanks. Also, a huge one, we've just spoken about this, but thank you again to all you residents for working together in the preparation time and then responding appropriately when needed to in the face of the threat of danger. But all those residents who looked out for others, particularly vulnerable residents. You know, again, I've just mentioned this, but the true generosity, camaraderie and resilience of the human spirit is truly revealed at times such as these. So really thank you again, and our thoughts and prayers will continue for those affected and still recovering. Just 3 instances that I did want to pull out, and I know there's many others, but there's the ones with the farmers and the stock feeds. I think that was something which was incredibly put together quickly, and people took up the opportunity to help others. I think that's very significant in our community. The other one was the instance of the CFA brigades bringing communities together to, again, be very proactive in protecting those communities. Thank you to those people doing that and the others that supported them to do that. And also another significant one, we spoke about Cave Hill Creek, Councillor Clark did too. I don't know whether people are aware, but they had a lot of food that was that would have gone to waste, but they donated to their local schools, and the schools then were proactive here in Beaufort to be able to get them to families that needed it. They're just a very few examples of so many other examples, but I really just did want to shout out to those because they were ones, again, people that didn't hide in that face of the adversity, but really tried to make the most of it. So again, thank you. On a very positive note, to change the tone, we've got our beautiful little Carnham Uniting Church community is holding an Easter egg hunt next Sunday, the 24th of May at the church grounds. So all the community are invited. So So that's going to be a lovely event. And as we do approach Easter break, we do please hope that people can come together and really enjoy this time and be thankful for time with family and friends. But please stay safe, and especially on the roads and as you move about your activities. So wishing you all a wonderful time over that break.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just the usual council briefings and the councillor cuppa and chat. I did miss the cuppa at Redbank, which I apologise for, but I had a few things on, so apologies for that. Not a real lot, haven't been real busy during February, but to general normal constituent meetings and requests and inquiries, but predominantly there have been fire and emergency related inquiries from people, obviously from the recent events. I just urge people to continue that, even if you just want to have a chat, get a hold of me or one of the councillors, and if we don't know the answer, we can certainly point you in the right direction. So please don't be afraid to reach out and speak if you need be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrari. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Like most of the other councillors, the community couple we had here at Beaufort was good but not highly attended. We had a very good one again at Redbank. Not as many people, but I think just as fit and active as they were last time we were there with them. But that was really good, given we've got some works planned for the town there. My normal meetings where I represent Council, Central Victoria Greenhouse Alliance and the Highlands Lend have both met in February, so I've attended those meetings. Again, a range of fire matters, of course. In the context of those things, I managed to get to the fire meetings in Avoca and here, out at Raglan, but also managed to visit the Relief Centre in Ballarat a couple of times, which was really useful in that sense of things and really helpful. And currently caught up with a couple of my local constituents at there. Highlight of my month was the 80th anniversary of the Burnaby CFA. And when you think about the 80th anniversary, that means in 1944, in the middle of World War II, those farmers that were still around here got together and thought we actually needed to do something about a fire. And they had a beater in the corner of the room, and several of us used it as a prop in the thing. As I said, most people think this is like a Harry Potter room, and you actually don't really realise what it is for. That's how we fought fires in those days, that and the knapsack. You've been lucky if you got the beater, it was a lot lighter than the knapsack in that sense of things. Brigade, to their credit, have always been pretty entrepreneurial, and they have managed to find their original Austin fire truck from 1956. And they've got it mounted out the front. I'm not sure there might be a bit of a planning issue with that or not with council, but I might have a discussion with the CEO about that later. But they've actually got it mounted in pride of place in front of their fire shed, which is a really, really nice thing, but a really well attended, probably about 80 people there, and they had a really, really nice day out. I've had a couple of constituent matters, one in Warborough, another in Evansford, and again, thank you to council officers for kind of dealing with those, particularly the Evansford one, where it's been a request that's been around for some time around speed limits on roads, and a number of people, of course, spoke to us when we were there in November, and I've passed that material through, and thank you, Mr Gowans, for acting on it. That's all from me. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. The Mayor and the CEO attended a round table with our local member for Federal Parliament, Dan Tehan, and Bridget McKenzie in Hamilton back early in February. Quite an interesting hour or so. Quite a long drive, but it was well worth it because if nothing else, Dan Tehan is always very approachable. He's a great member. I can't speak highly enough of him. He always knows you wherever you are, first name basis, straight away, you know, and the amount of people that he meets in his everyday walks around Parliament and everywhere else to remember somebody just bang off the cuffers. Makes him that much easier to talk to, and he's a great member. Bridget, well, Bridget's Bridget. She's a bit of an attack warrior for the system, but she's also a very good member, no doubt, for those that have elected her. A couple of days later, we had the official opening of the cricket nets up at the Oval. I don't know how the local side finished up in the cricket. didn't get to follow the outcome of the finals, but at least on that particular occasion, they were extremely excited about the fact that they weren't only going to just support another 1 or 2 cricket teams, but they might finish up with 5 cricket teams now, which is great. Took a long time coming. The week later, I attended the 20th anniversary of the Australian Ex-Prisoners of War Memorial in Ballarat. As I mentioned to the particular gentleman, I sat 2 rows behind the Governor-General, David Hurley. A fortnight later, he was on the phone ringing me up. David Hurley here. That's how easy he was to speak to. He came into our community, he and his wife, and who I didn't realise at the time, but somebody said to me, "She's bound to sing you a song, you can back that one in." Yeah, she was just so easy, you know, considering the role that they play. They were great ambassadors for our King. And I'm sure the local community appreciated the visit when he came. I've had a couple of other meetings, virtual meetings, and the usual cuppers, fire meetings. So I attended the Relief Centre in Ballarat on the first night, and then I drove off to, I think I stayed in town overnight, I'm sure I did, in Ballarat, and went the next day to the Relief Centre and then up to Ararat. Had a talk to people up there. It was a little bit quieter in Ararat at that stage. It was midweek and the heat had gone out of the fire a little bit. It was still burning, don't get me wrong, it was still burning, but not quite as fierce as it was on the first day. But the people at the Relief Centre, the Northern Grampians, had staff there giving the Ararat ones a bit of a spell, so that was great. I'm sure our CEO found the same response over at Maryborough when he ventured off that way. We're driven mad with radio and TV, but anyway, that goes with the scenario. The ICC had a role to play, and it was obvious that they had a massive role to play. I was told there were actually 5 different rooms in operation at the main centre, so they weren't all in together, and it may well be that some of the communications that were getting out to the fireground might have reflected in that. I know when we went to the Raglan station the day after the extremely bad day, and some of the local brigade were a bit critical of messages that they couldn't get from the ICC because the radio communications were breaking down. But these are all things I've no doubt that will be discussed further and finally come to some sort of resolve. The other meeting I had was with rural councils last week in Melbourne. Rural councils had a get together at the
Victoria Parliament House?
Yeah, but the hotel across the road.
The Windsor.
The Windsor Hotel. They had guest speakers there. And then we moved on to State Parliament. The Premier assured me that any assistance that they could offer, she would follow up on. So I'm going to take her up on her word. And I must also, in wrapping up Dan Teen, I must wrap Martha Haylett too, because she organised a meeting for the rural councils at Parliament House, and we had 2, as well as the Premier, we had 2 ministers there, and it was a great opportunity to feature the fire as well as other issues that were happening. So that's my lot. With that, I will call for a motion that those move Councillor Clark, seconded Councillor Ferrari. All in favour? That is carried. We will move now into confidential items. I'll ask that the meeting be closed to members of the public in accordance with section 4.1.1 of Council's governance rules. Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 in order to discuss confidential reports listed below, that being 15.1 CEO performance review for 2023. Somebody move, Councillor Clark, second to Councillor Ferrari. All in favour? That's carried. So the
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, Trevor.
See you, Drew. See you guys. Have a nice night.